The 6th generation of consoles is one of my favorite console generations of all time. There were so many amazing games released during the generation, like Spider-Man 2, Lego Star Wars, and of course the original Halo. There was one game that released during the generation though that many people don't seem to talk about much anymore, and that game is none other than Beyond Good and Evil. Beyond Good and Evil was released in November of 2003 for the GameCube, PS2, as well as the original Xbox. Despite the fact that it's been 21 years since its launch, that doesn't change the fact that it's still one of the greatest games ever made. The game is one of the most unique art styles I've ever seen in a video game. The soundtrack is the definition of perfection, and the story is just so damn good. It's honestly one of those games that I feel has stood the test of time, and because of that, I think it's aged pretty well. Now, if you're like me and never got to give the original game a try, you're in luck, because on June 25th, Ubisoft blessed us with a 20th anniversary remaster of the game. The remaster is of course what I'll be talking about for this video, as it's definitely the definitive way to play this game nowadays. This remaster even has support for 4K 60fps on PC, PS5, and Series X, which is pretty sweet. The remaster is by far the best remaster I've ever played. It does a great job at keeping the original game intact without changing too much. The only thing that's really changed here from the original, as far as I can tell, is the graphics. They actually went through and remade every asset just for this remaster, which is pretty awesome. Before I get on with the rest of the video though, I just wanted to say special thanks to Ubisoft for providing me with a code for the PC version of the game. I also played the game on Series X, so the gameplay you'll see in this video will be a mix of PC and Series X gameplay. The remaster runs great on both platforms though, so that's all you need to know regarding that. With all that out of the way though, I think it's time we dive into Beyond Good and Evil and find out what exactly made it so great. Starting with the story, honestly, it's pretty simple and straightforward. The story follows a photojournalist by the name of Jade and her adoptive uncle Paige. Together they operate a lighthouse, which is kind of like an orphanage for children whose parents were kidnapped by an alien race known as the Doms. The game takes place on the planet of Hillis, and it's one of the most beautiful settings I've ever seen in a video game. During my playthrough of the story, by far the best part was running around different areas of the planet, just exploring every nook and cranny to see what was around. Exploration is a huge part of the game, but don't worry, I'll get into that later. Anyways, from the opening of the game, the Doms are established as a pretty legitimate threat as they end up invading Hillis and attack the lighthouse in an attempt to kidnap the orphans. Jade and Paige end up saving the day, of course, and with that opening, it sets up the story for the rest of the game. Now, due to the invasion of the Doms, the military, also known as the Alpha Sections, has been sent in to protect the people of Hillis. Throughout the story, you'll interact with various characters such as this guy named Double H who works with a group called the Iris Network. The Iris Network has one goal and one goal only, and that's to prove that the Alpha Sections weren't actually set to take down the Doms, and that they've instead been involved with the Doms in helping with the kidnappings all along. Now yes, it's not the deepest story out there, but for what it is, I think it works incredibly well. Couple the incredible story with the fantastic soundtrack, and what you're left with is a game that's on par with an actual movie. This game's story was able to keep me hooked from start to finish, and as someone who's been trying to beat Yakuza 0 for the past 3 years, it's hard for a game to hold my attention longer than 5 minutes. Not Yakuza 0 a bad game, by the way. I just have a god-awful attention span. Throughout the story, you'll end up photographing all sorts of things, from different creatures to evidence which will be used to expose the Alpha Sections and the Doms. Now, the story by itself was already really damn good, but the level design in this game is just on another level. Every area in this game felt grand in scope and looked phenomenal. The final level even sees you flying to the fucking moon to broadcast all of your reports you made throughout the story. That final level gave me serious Half-Life 1 vibes as well. And I mean, Half-Life is one of my favorite games of all time, so of course I was gonna love the level. The best area in the game was definitely the pedestrian area of Hillis. The first thing you'll notice upon seeing the pedestrian zone for the first time is just how alive it feels. There's people everywhere, and as you walk through the city, you'll always overhear them voicing their opinions or protesting against the Doms and the Alpha Sections. I love when games do this, as it not only makes the NPCs feel more genuine, but it makes the world world of the game feel more alive. That feeling of liveliness isn't just restricted to the pedestrian zone though, as it applies to just about every other area in the game. Each area you go to will always have various creatures of all shapes and sizes roaming around just kinda doing their own thing. All in all, the level design and story are nothing short of phenomenal. As I said earlier, this game's story did a great job of keeping me hooked and had me wanting to actually finish the game. Everything about this game's story, from the levels to the characters, were awesome. If you haven't played Beyond Good and Evil yet, just for the story alone, I'd say it's worth playing. Now that I've talked about the story and whatnot though, let's get into talking about the gameplay. The gameplay of Beyond Good and Evil is absolutely fantastic. The best way I can describe it is that it kind of plays like a Zelda game would. It's got the same sort of puzzle and exploration elements as a Zelda game, where you have to examine the environment around you to find solutions to certain puzzles. Yeah, that's something I didn't mention during the story section because I wanted to save it for this portion of the video. But yes, this game is heavy on the puzzles. There's a puzzle in almost each and every level, and they can be quite tricky at times. The puzzles will see you doing a variety of things, like using your companion character to activate a switch so you can use an elevator or something, or using your glove projectiles to move objects. Now, since I brought up the companion characters, I might as well talk about that. The companion system is this game's most unique mechanic, and I absolutely love the way it works in this game. Depending on who your companion is during the story, you can tell them to do certain things to help you advance in a level. For instance, Paige has his rocket boots that can allow him to do a ground pound, which can knock enemies in the air or just launch you somewhere that's out of reach. With one push of a button, you can tell your companion exactly what to do. This whole mechanic is honestly really cool, and if it makes a return in Beyond Good and Evil 2, I can't wait to see how it's gonna work in there. Now, as promised earlier, I'm of course gonna be talking about exploration, because exploring in this game is just so much fun. As you traverse through the planet of Hillis, you'll do all sorts of things, from platforming to, as I said earlier, taking pictures and interacting with all the different characters on the planet. Fully exploring Hillis can really benefit you in a lot of ways. For example, one of the main collectibles and currencies in the game is pearls, and one way you can get a lot of them is by going to the top of a volcano. By doing that, you're able to get a load of pearls from there. There's also outfit section warehouses all over the pedestrian zone that can net you a lot of pearls if you explore them. This is a game you really want to take your time with, just to make sure you explore every little bit, because you will miss things. Now, talking about combat, the combat in this game is pretty solid. Jade has two main attacks, which consist of a regular light attack and a special attack. The light attack is what I found to be most effective, as while the special attack is stronger, it does take some time to charge up. I guess it's supposed to be a high risk, high reward type of move, but I just didn't find it to be all that useful during my playthrough. The combat system in this game is all around really solid though, and I don't have any complaints about it. When you're not beating up everything in sight or solving puzzles, you'd be sneaking around Alpha Section's warehouses Metal Gear style. Now, I love stealth games. I mean, just look at how many Hitman games I own. Half of these are the same game, but the point is, I love stealth games, and these stealth sections were the perfect blend of challenging and fun. To round out this portion of the video, I have to say the gameplay of Beyond Good and Evil is pretty damn good, all things considered. The combat is overall pretty great. I absolutely love the exploration aspect of the game, and the companion mechanic really helps this game stand out. With that though, I think it's time we get into talking about the visuals. I'm just gonna say it, this is probably one of the best looking remasters I've ever played. This is a remaster that keeps the look of the original game while also managing to look more modern in the process. The visuals are pretty fantastic, and I really like the fact that they didn't go too far with the graphics overall. This game is one of the most beautiful and unique art styles I've ever seen, so I feel keeping that original graphic style intact was pretty important. Everything in this game, from the environments to the character models, look great. There isn't a single thing that I thought looked bad, and that just goes to show you how good of a remaster this really is. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, you can even play the game at 4K 60 FPS if you want, which is always great to see. All in all, Beyond Good and Evil is one of the best games I've ever played. It's honestly surprising why I've never played this game sooner, but with how good this remaster is, I'm really glad I waited. If you were going to play this game, the remaster is definitely the way to go. This remaster even features extra bits of content like a speedrun mode which challenges you with beating the game as fast as possible, and all sorts of bonus content like concept art, videos, and promotional stuff from the original game's release. The speedrun mode is pretty fun, but the concept art definitely intrigued me. It's so cool being able to see the full history of this game and how it all came to be. This whole remaster is just so perfect, and for everything included in it, it's definitely worth giving a try. Once again, special thanks to Ubisoft for providing me access with the code to play the game, and with that, that's gonna do it for this video. Now if you excuse me, I'll be waiting here for Beyond Good and Evil 2 to release.
One eternity later.